Hi, everybody. How you doing?
Hey,
All right. Sorry, all this technical confusion. We'll figure it out at some point, I hope, with passwords and waiting room and yada yada yada. So we'll figure it out. And what we're going to do, I think, is start sending an invite every day with that day's link, just to be sure there's no confusion. So we'll give that a try. Okay, well, there may be more folks joining us, but let's get started. So first of all, before we get into what I'm going to share today, did anybody have any questions or observations or thoughts that they wanted to share with the group? Okay. All right, so it doesn't appear to be the case, but just use the chat if there is something that comes up. Both Brady and I will be watching the chat, and we'll be able to go from there. So we are funded by a grant from an organization called NC IDEA, which some of you may be familiar with. And part of the grant, there are certain requirements that we have to do. And one of the requirements is something that they call customer interviews. And I prefer to call it solving customer problems. So what we're going to do today and tomorrow, we're going to look at some material that is being provided to us by Techstars. We've been fortunate to get permission to use some of the Techstars curriculum. And in this particular case, one of the strong points is what they call customer discovery or customer interview, or even bigger, solving customer problems. So we're going to go through these videos today. There'll be, I believe it's three or four videos today. And there is a worksheet, which you'll see referenced in the video. And those worksheets are under worksheet in the Slack channel. You'll see two documents in there for today. There's one that's a kind of a form, if you will, and another one is a shorter one-pager. But you'll see them come up in the videos, and you'll be able to watch these videos again. You don't have to worry about it if you don't catch every detail. And this Techstars curriculum is in our website under, I think it's called Member Resources or something like that. So you'll be able to go back and look at it. But my hope is that you'll be able to, over the course of this 10-week period, whether you're a relatively new company just getting started, or you've been in business and you're looking to grow, this idea of getting a clear handle on which customer problems your business will solve. I think this is very, very helpful, and I'm not going to assign it, like this is not a school in that sense, but it's going to be something that you may find yourself looking at over time and figuring out how you might go about using it to discover your customer markets, either ones you already have and you think you can expand, or ones that you'd like to go into. And this will give you a format and a process to follow that I think will be real helpful. So I'm going to share my screen now, and we're going to go to, let's see here. Well, maybe not here. Hold on one second. Sorry about that. And customer, let's see if we can do it this way. Okay, there we go. All right. Hopefully everyone.
How many of you in the audience have an engineering degree or some type of hard sciences degree? Show of hands. All right, so that's most of us in the room. I have an engineering degree. We've played this game 5,000 times by the time we get our degree, which is some authority figure comes to you with a problem, says there's one known solution, and your grade depends on you answering that one known solution. So we got really good at this. We're really trained at doing this well. The problem in entrepreneurship is there's no given problem to you. The challenge is to figure out what the problem is, not figuring out what the solution is. So what this session is going to help you do is, instead of figuring out the one right solution that your grade or the future of your company depends on, it's figuring out the problems, the questions to ask to help you understand how to build the right product for your customers. I think Einstein captured this really well when he said, the formulation of a problem is often more essential than its solution. And the interesting thing that he would do is, if he got stuck trying to figure something out, he wouldn't bang his head harder on figuring out the solution. He would say, I've probably framed this wrong. Let me go back and reframe the problem. And he would put energy into that, knowing that that would unlock the solution or the answer. So our typical approach when we build products, when we build companies, is we start out with some intention, vision, the sort of lofty goal, the place we want to get our business, and we jump straight to building the solution. Really common among engineers or people who are used to building a lot of things, like they get their joy and fulfillment out of building. First place we go is to build. This can be really dangerous in early stage startups because the likelihood you're going to build the wrong thing is really high. So there's a missing crucial step there that can save you sometimes years and years of hardship and toil. There was one company that I was a part of, one of the startups I was a part of. We spent almost 3 years building a product. I'm not proud of this. Building a product, winning tons of awards for the technology. We shipped the thing and no one cared about it. We barely even made the money we invested on it back. And the fundamental thing was that we got the problem wrong. We never sat down and asked the question, what is the underlying fundamental problem here we're trying to solve? We built amazing technology for a problem that didn't exist, which is a real bummer to invest your life, or at least 3 years of your life in that. So hopefully these tools will help you avoid that. In my mind, it all starts with empathy. So I want to give you a little bit of a just light guide on what empathy is and how it works in our brains. So let's say that you just happen to have a functional MRI machine, and you brought one of your customers in and had them describe an experience that they're having. Their brains would light up on the functional MRI machine pretty much this way. These centers of the brains would get very active in burning off sugar. If you put you or somebody else in a functional MRI machine right next to them, and all they're doing is listening to that customer explain their experience, their brains would light up in very similar ways. This is a process of mirror neurons. Our brains are hardwired to take the position of others, have empathy for them, and understand their intent and where they're coming from. Our brains do this naturally. Problem is, we often ignore that part of our brain, or we don't even give ourselves the chance to have empathy where we can connect our brains with our customers and understand what's really going on in the world. But empathy isn't enough. You also have to have insight. Because if you're building a company that's from scratch, doing something new, your insights will allow you to go in places other people may have not ever thought possible. So you can discover a solution space that perhaps no one else has solved. Or you know that there's a possibility of something that's possible that no one else has seen. Or you can reframe the situation in a way that allows you to create a very large business. And when you combine those, empathy plus insights, that allows you to frame a problem. Because it can be dangerous to solve exactly word for word what the customer asks you to solve. It's your insights that allows you to break away from that, create something different or something revolutionarily better. And that's what you can build really powerful businesses around. This works pretty simply. You sit down and you interview people. The way that I find that this works really well, so what this is an actual interview happening, is you've got one person on the red couch there, that's the person being interviewed, and you've got two people conducting the interview. One person here on the right is asking the questions, the person in the middle is taking notes. And the person taking notes isn't just taking notes about what the other person says, they're taking notes about what they're intuiting. They're connecting with that person being interviewed. So if that person feels something like, oh, this is a little bit weird, or what was that reaction, or wow, I'm feeling really excited in this moment, or I sense dread at this part of the interview, take those in the notes. Also take notes on the person doing the interview, because hopefully you're not doing just one of these. You're going to do 40, 50, 100 of these, and you want to get better with each interview. So that's why it's really important to have two people. Doing these interviews is super hard if you're doing it alone. If you get really good at it and you've done a lot of interviews, then you can kind of go it alone and take notes, conduct the interview, sort of get into this Zen moment, but it's really, really hard. So when you first start this out, make sure you're doing two people interviewing one person. Now, often when I help companies with this, I'll say, okay, now go out and do 20, 30, 40 interviews. And usually a clever entrepreneur will say, cool, well, I'm going to put 40 people in the room, or I'm going to send out a survey to 40 people, and that gets me my 40. The rule of thumb here is always interview one other person, and the ideal situation is when you can see the other person's pupils dilate. That's when you know you're in an environment that's conducive to a really good interview. Well, why is that? Because our bodies are picking up on the bodily reactions, not just what they're saying. So doing these over the phone, really bad, because you can't get that sense of what's going on. Doing interviews over email, completely useless. Doing interviews where there's 10 or 20 people in the room with you, also, in my opinion, completely useless. Because what happens there, like a focus group, let's say you've got 10 people in the room, usually within about 30 to 90 seconds, the most vocal person in the room will bias everybody else. And so what will start happening is you're hearing 7, 8 people agree with what you're saying, or they're all agreeing with each other, and you think, wow, these 7 people are really having the same problem. The reality is there's probably one person that's vocal, may or may not even have the problem, and the other 6, 7 people are just joining in. So that's why focus groups are so dangerous to do at the early stage. Later stage, as you're testing, fine-tuning go-to-market, there's chances there that they work okay. But early stage, please don't do focus groups. Please don't send out email surveys. Please don't send out other type of 5, 10-second click surveys. Take the time, 20, 30 minutes, to sit down with a potential customer and really understand their world. Now, once you are getting ready for those, I've got a worksheet here called the Empathy Interview Planner, and this will help you prepare for these empathy interviews. We're going to take a little bit of time here in a minute and practice some of this. So we'll get some hands-on with this, but I want to give you a real quick tour of it. In the upper left-hand corner, talk about your intention. What are you trying to learn? Why are you doing this? Next box is reaching your users or customers. Where are you going to find them? What are you going to say to them to try to get them to schedule an interview? A pro tip here is if you're really struggling to find people to even interview, that's a really good sign you're not onto something. Because you can't even get them to spend 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes with you. How are you ever going to convince them to buy your product? So that's the first sign whether or not even your intention is sort of aimed in a spot that the market cares about. Then we think about themes, possible themes that you want to learn more about. And then your interview questions. So pull from those themes, asking 1 or 2 open-ended, genuinely curious questions about the themes that you want to explore. And then on the right-hand side of this guide, or of the worksheet, is a guide that gives you some insights into how to ask effective questions, how to conduct these interviews in a way that maximize the data that comes back from the people you're interviewing. So we'll dive into this here in a minute, pretty hands-on. Because we're doing multiple of these interviews, the key is we want to be able to step back and start to see patterns. We've got this raw data from the interviews that when you do these, transcribe almost, maybe not word for word like a medical transcription, but transcribe thematically pretty accurately what the other person says. And so when you get done with 40, 50, 100 of these interviews, you're going to have a lot of transcripts. So the empathy map is a way to stand back and say, okay, given everything that we learned from all these interviews, what are the patterns that are showing up? And the specific patterns we want to focus on in the middle are, what did the people say? What stood out to you? The people said, don't think just about things that you heard over and over again. Also note outliers here. Outlier comments can be really powerful. So what did they say in the interview? What did you infer that they were thinking? Or maybe they were actually talking about the thoughts that they were having. If you're watching people do, in a work situation, so let's say your business involves certain activities, go visit your prospects, watch them do those activities, and do is where they either talk about what they did or you actually observing what they're doing. There's a piece of this which is kind of a joke in knowledge management, which is we only know what we know in the moment when we need to know it. So if you ask somebody what they know, you'll get pretty crappy answers. If you watch them do something and have them sort of articulate or sort of talk to themselves about what they're thinking about, how they're approaching it, then you'll really get the knowledge that they have. So that's a trick if you're out in the field doing ethnographic type research where you're watching people work. And then the final box here is feel. So if you feel something in these interviews, or if the person describes their emotions in the situations that you're having them describe, note those there. Also note outliers as well as common patterns. So the center part there is where you're really pulling directly from the transcripts. Then on the edges, you're trying to infer what's going on around that direct lived experience. So there you're synthesizing out, okay, of the feelings, of the thoughts, of the actions, what represents tensions and anxieties? What makes them nervous? What's sort of keeping them stuck in the status quo? Because most new products, most new startups, your biggest competition is not the other 12 startups doing what you're sort of vaguely doing. The biggest competition is the status quo, the entrenched beliefs of your customers. And those generally show up as tensions and anxieties where they don't want to move away from the status quo. So note those there. Motivations. What's motivating them to take on a different way? So this is what's compelling them to get off the status quo and think about there's got to be a better way to solve this problem that I'm having or improve my experience. And then finally note the situations that these people are in as they're describing their lived experience. And we'll get back to the situation, why that's important here in a little bit. Then once you do this, stand back from it. I've done these where there's like 400 or 500 sticky notes on this huge mural on the wall. And the sticky notes represent direct quotes from the interviews. And then we stand back from it and we look for patterns. We say, okay, where's the signal? Where are the outliers here? Where are we getting insights? Where are we getting data that blends up with our insights, that give us a way of looking at the customer, at the prospect in a way that we maybe have never thought about before?
Okay, I just wanted to take a second here. We've got a couple more we're going to look at, but the Techstars material was made before the pandemic, and I don't see any reason why you can't do customer interviews by Zoom. And we have the ability to make you a host on our account, and you can use our Zoom to reach out if you have an interest in doing this. We can have, I believe, up to 8 more hosts. So if you want to do that, get in touch with Brady, and he'll set you up so that you can use this tool to do these interviews, because I really think the in-person interviews are just complicated given our current situation. So I do want to make this tool available to the group. Okay, any questions at this point? Okay, we'll go back to Techstars. And let's see.
So there's a group of students at Stanford, and they were given a design challenge of improving technology in third world environments. And the challenge they were given were specifically incubators in Nepal, in the third world. And the challenge was, okay, we hear that there's a high mortality rate among infants in the third world, and the presumption was, let's go build a cheap incubator. The assumed problem was, that the students assumed was, okay, well, this is the third world, probably the infrastructure isn't all that great, probably they don't have incubators to keep the babies warm, or if they do, they're broken, they have a hard time getting parts, but our suspicion is they just can't afford these incubators. And so they started on the design challenge, and the professor was like, whoa, where's your direct experience here? And they're like, well, what do you mean? They're like, where's your direct experience? Have you talked to doctors, nurses in the field in third world countries to check up your assumptions? And they're like, no. So they got on a plane, went to Nepal, rural Nepal, went to a hospital, said, hey, we're here to build better incubators for you. The doctor's like, okay, great, they're over there. And they looked at me and were like, well, there's a whole wall of incubators. What's wrong with the incubators? So one, they're like, great, they have incubators. That was a surprise. Number two, what's wrong with them? Because we don't see any babies in them. And the staff there said, oh, the incubators are totally fine. They work great. But the babies never make it here from the field in time to put them in the incubator to make a difference. So in that moment, they got data that was a complete reframe on what they thought. They thought the problem to solve was incubators were too expensive. And what they realized was the problem was the incubators are fine, but we don't have a solution for the 2 to 3 hours it takes the babies to make it from the location of birth to the hospital where they can be saved. So knowing this, they're like, okay, well, let's go out into the field. Let's go way out into the rural areas and look at what's going on. So they watched births, they understood the dynamics of what was happening, and what they realized was, we don't need a cheap, fancy incubator in a hospital. We need this. It's basically like a sleeping bag. So the reframe was, the problem is we have to keep the babies warm for 2 to 3 hours to get them to the hospital. If we do that, problem solved. So they built basically what looks like a sleeping bag for a newborn. Wrap it in there. There's a little gel pack that you boil. Put the gel pack in there. Good for 2 to 3 hours to keep the baby warm on the way to the hospital. So they built a few prototypes of this because, again, even the reframe knowing, this is the solution, wasn't good enough. So they built a bunch of prototypes to figure out, okay, is this going to work? Built prototypes, put them out in the field, zero efficacy. Didn't work at all. And they're thinking material science is like, oh, is the fabric wrong? Did the gel pack fail? They go back out and they realize, no, why it's failing is the mothers are refusing to put their babies in the mobile incubator. And I'm like, what in the world is that? There's a perfectly good solution. It's cheap, works great. Why in the world, moms, are you not using this? But you might also wonder, why in the world is there, in something that's supposed to be thermally complete, basically a window that is this huge area for heat to leave the sleeping bag? Well, in their culture, unless the moms can see the heart area of the baby, they were presuming that these bags were going to kill the kids. And that was a cultural artifact. But in the West, we totally missed that cultural artifact. So by making the solution much more ineffective thermally, it dramatically increased usage of the product. So sometimes get ourselves in our perfect engineering brains and we think, oh, it's all about we didn't build the solution perfectly. Now the reality here of why this initial prototype failed was they didn't have complete empathy for the moms and the social context and the cultural context of what they were building. So this device now has saved, I believe, about 200,000 or 300,000 kids in rural areas and helping them get to hospitals in time for medical attention. So this is the power of empathy, of doing research in the field to really understand the underlying problems, social context around the problem that you're trying to solve. Think about an area of your product development or your go-to-market where potentially you're struggling a little bit. You've got an idea of why something should be working, but maybe it's not working all that well. Or maybe there's a big unknown in your business that you want to put some data and some evidence behind, and you want to do some empathy interviews. So this worksheet will help you turn this sort of unknown, this need, this uncertainty, this dilemma into an interview that you can use to build evidence about the true nature of the situation. I'm going to guide you through each box. We'll take a couple minutes on each box and then I'll bring us back together. So when you think about intention, what I want you to do is maybe one sentence there of what do you want to learn more about in your business that's either an unsolved solution, a problem, something you know you need to put some energy behind. Where would you like to go deeper in understanding with your prospects and your customers? So I want you to take 1 minute, discuss among your team, and fill in that box with one sentence. Okay, so hopefully you've got some intention that you want to explore. Next thing to think about is how are you going to reach your prospects or your customers that you want to interview? What are you going to say to them? Where are you going to find them? How are you going to get them interested in coming and spending 30 minutes chatting with you? So that's that middle left-hand box. Let's take another about minute and a half, 2 minutes to fill in that box. All right, got some ideas on how to get your prospects interested and where to find them and reach them? Next up, possible themes. What themes do you want to explore during the interview? So think about your intention. What are you trying to learn? And then think of 2, 3, 4 themes that you want to explore in more detail when you're talking with these prospects and customers. So we'll take a couple minutes, fill out 3 or 4 themes there. All right, hopefully now you've identified a few themes. In the sake of time, we're not going to explore all the themes, but what I want you to do is pick one theme and come up with 3 or 4 questions that you would like to ask related to that theme. So we're not going to go through all the themes. Eventually you would, but figure just to give you some practice on each of these sections. Handful of questions you would want to ask to gain empathy around the theme you're exploring. And look at the interview guide on the right-hand side of the worksheet. That'll give you some helpful tips on how to frame the questions. The big thing is to frame them in very open-ended and curious ways. So imagine you know nothing about their experience, and you're there really asking open questions to solicit stories from them and lived experiences from them. So you've got some questions, but let's learn a little bit more about how these interviews, how to think about and structure the interviews. I'm going to have a couple helpers come up and do a little role playing here with this. And some applause for our volunteers, please. So what we're going to do here is do a little bit of role playing around these interviews. Beck, you're going to be asking the questions, right? Hannah, you're going to be playing the role of a potential customer, potential prospect. So we understand our roles here. I'll let them do kind of the interview here, and then I'll say time out. And what I'll do is I'll break in and kind of do the color commentary on what I'm observing. And then I'll say time in, and then we'll kind of go back into role playing. So we've got a couple of trained improv artists here, so I think we'll be good. All right, so time in.
So don't you think that prefab homes would be a great way to go on this land?
I don't know if I know enough about what a prefab home is, but maybe.
Well, but wouldn't it be great if like your house came more complete than if you had to find all the pieces yourself?
Yeah. I mean, that sounds nice.
All right, let's do time out here. So on those last 2 questions, really good leading questions. So the challenge here is, so Hannah was sort of following along. And if you have a reality distortion field, which is really like you're bought in on the fact that this is a problem, I heard Hannah being nice, which is like, oh yeah, that's kind of an issue maybe. And it's super easy for Beck to think, oh, I'm onto something. Finally, I'm talking to somebody who needs what I'm selling. Confirmation. Off we go. And this is the danger in doing these really biased interview tactics, is that it's super easy for you to hear, yeah, that sounds reasonable, with, oh, strong signal, we are on to something now. So that's the danger. All right, so now let's shift gears a little bit, and now we'll role play a little bit of a different style, which is much more of an open kind of story-provoking, this place where we're not able to confuse ourselves with some signal with positive signal. So time in.
So tell me more about the vision. Like, what do you think it'll be like?
My future house?
Your future house on land with the garden.
Well, I always had a dream to have like friends or family nearby, so maybe sharing land or having different plots with kind of like more community style, so not totally alone, but we could share like a garden or something. I'm really into simplicity, and so I just picture it very peaceful and simple.
That's so cool. I have a really similar dream. I love the idea of living with family and friends nearby. But, do you know who would be there, or do you think it just kind of, how will it work? Who's going to join you?
Well, that's where it gets like more complicated. There's definitely some buy-in. I have lots of friends that are like, yeah, I'm into that too, but I don't believe how into it they are, because it's kind of a big commitment to live near or with someone. So I don't really know that part.
What does simple mean to you, if you don't mind telling me? Like, what does it look like?
No clutter. Kind of just surrounding myself with things that bring me joy. Lots of light and plants.
Nice.
Yeah.
Can you see the property in your mind? Do you know what it looks like?
Yeah, there's lots of trees and grass and maybe like a stream going through.
So what keeps you from making this vision a reality?
I don't know how to get from like here to there. I'm really afraid of one, like permits. Like I live in Boulder County and it's just like I feel like everything's not allowed. Like you just can't do what you want to do. So that seems really overwhelming to navigate that.
Cool. Let's do a timeout here. All right. What did you notice at the very beginning there? I heard a pretty open question that kind of would elicit a story. The next part was really powerful. This sort of confirmation, the connection, the empathy, building rapport of like, oh yeah, I've experienced that too. I relate to you. So that sense of connecting there, then followed by another really crisp, open-ended question to tell a story. So notice the difference there between the first ones, which were very leading, of hey, would you like a house with that? To these, which are much more about tell me a story, what's going on around your world. The other piece that was powerful in there is there was some inquiry around the functional elements of a home. There was inquiry around the social elements of a home and living, the dynamics around that. And then finally some inquiry around the emotion of it. So what's going on at the functional surface, which those of us who are engineers, it's super easy for us to just get stuck at the functional surface level. But this one went down into the social component and then all the way down into the emotional component. So a really powerful way to traverse that, all the while building empathy, building connection, building a sense of rapport with each question. The other thing that I heard that I thought was pretty powerful was ask a question, and then Beck was completely silent. There was head nodding, there was that notion of eye contact and connection, but there was no sort of breaking in, like I'm already done with what you're saying, I'm ready, I got the next question loaded up, I'm ready to go. So give space. It's the hardest thing when you do these interviews, is to give space for the person to answer, and then give a little bit of space for awkward silence. Because in that awkward silence is often where you'll get a little extra nugget of what's going on for the person. Thank you so much for doing the role playing, really appreciate it.
Okay. Any thoughts, reactions to the video, particularly the last one? Okay. Okay, I got a chat from William Pressler that he thought the material was good. Thanks, William. This material is available to you. You can access it anytime, including the worksheets. So hopefully you'll take advantage of that. A little bit later on, we're going to have a presentation toward the end of September from Tom Newell, who you met yesterday. Tom is one of my best friends and was my lawyer for a long time before he became rich and famous. And he's going to give a talk on the why. Why do you do what you do? What's the purpose of it? And I think you'll really enjoy it. He's requested that everybody look at a TED Talk, which I posted on Slack, which is really good. A guy named Simon Sinek, some of you may be familiar with. But it's a wonderful orientation to what we're talking about right now, and that is really getting into the heart of the customer and what they're looking for, and then we can use that information to package our approach, if you will, or our business, so that we're in a place to really answer the need and hopefully grow our business at the same time. Now, I realize that we're all different types of businesses here and there are different applications, but the overall themes I hope resonate and give you a framework. And so don't hesitate to go to this Techstars Entrepreneurs Toolkit, which we've been given permission. Very, very nice of them to do it. Just to give you an idea, Techstars is an invitation only accelerator, and they do 10 companies per class, and they invest $120,000 in each startup, as well as helping them access more capital. Their program has been going since I think 2006, and they have over $26 billion worth of value in companies that have been through their program and involved. So they're well thought of. They are focused more on technology than we are, but some of their material is really good. And I'm very happy that they gave us permission to use some of it as time goes on. I'm going to ask Brady. Brady has a couple of things that he wants to bring up. So Brady, go ahead.
Yeah, hey everybody. So I just wanted to touch on the Techstars Toolkit and all the other free resources they provide. Sorry if I'm looking over here. One of my monitors is over here that you guys are on. So I just over summer actually completed a Techstars program, and I've completed several other programs around the nation and the world as far as accelerators go. I've been to Costa Rica for one. I've been a part of Future Founders, which is a large national one. And then I've been part of Harvard Business School Online's Entrepreneurship Accelerator program as well. And Techstars by far blows everybody else out of the water as far as the content, the material that they teach and provide you. They really want to see everyone succeed, even if you're not officially a part of them. So I highly recommend going through the Techstars website. I highly recommend buying the books, especially by Brad Feld, like the Venture Deals book. Those are listed under the course recommended readings in the syllabus. But yeah, definitely, I mean, just utilize the Techstars resources, as well as your peers in this cohort for Accelerate Rural. Through my other accelerator programs, I'm still in contact with every single group that I've been a part of. Obviously, some people have dropped off, but it is, I think, between the mentors and your peers, I mean, this is the best community that you can build up, especially with everybody being local. So interact a lot with your peers, get to know them, even if it's just reaching out to them directly on Slack and stuff, and participating in the Zoom as well, you know, just chiming in and talking and starting discussion. Think of it a lot like a mastermind group. You know, you're going to get what you put into it. But other than those two things, I did want to highlight, I just sent a message in the Slack channel. The Miller School of Entrepreneurship is going to be hosting workshops for their Pirate Entrepreneurship Challenge. I believe it looks like there's 5 workshops they'll be hosting. And obviously these are geared at towards students that will be participating in the Pirate Entrepreneurship Challenge this year. However, they wanted to invite all of you as part of Accelerate Rural to come and attend. And it's all really great stuff that you'll get out of it as well. They have several different professors speaking, and I think local business owners and things like that. So I have uploaded the document with all of the meetings. They'll be hosted on WebEx, and there's a password. I uploaded the Word document on the Google Drive, and I sent a link in the Slack and everything. You'll see when you go and see it. And I'm currently plugging them into the calendar right now. So you'll see whenever you're looking at the course calendar on the website, you'll see blue events, which are our events, and then the Miller School ones will be purple. So these are definitely optional, but highly recommended to attend. And then on another note with the syllabus as well, once I plug these events in, we'll be updating the syllabus so it'll be accurate. But again, refer to the course calendar on the website before the syllabus, because the course calendar, whenever we update an event or modify it, that automatically gets updated, versus the syllabus, we have to then go through, even if it's one small update, we have to go through and basically redo the whole thing and re-upload it. So make sure you guys are referring to that course calendar. And like Dennis mentioned at the beginning of the meeting too, we'll be sending out emails every day with the meeting information as well now. And we're gonna potentially disable the passwords as well for the meetings, just to make it easier for everybody else. But if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, Slack, email, whatever works best. I could give you guys my phone number too. But that's all for me, Dennis.
All right, thank you, Brady. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Anything from anyone else in the group? Any comments, thoughts? Okay, one of the things that I'm going to want to do is we're going to be setting up individual meetings with each of you to get a clear picture of where your company is at and what you're trying to accomplish. So I guess we'll be doing our own interviews like we saw. Hopefully we'll be smart enough to use the TechStar techniques. But I do realize that everyone is in a different spot. And one of my jobs is to match you up with mentors that will be most beneficial to where you're at and where you'd like to go. There are a number of mentors that were not on the presentation yesterday for a variety of reasons. So I will make an effort to schedule this and get on your calendar. It will not be during this class time, this 1 to 2 o'clock thing. But I do want to do that and get a sense of what you're trying to do. And we'll all kind of, we'll each individually map out a game plan for you and for your company that will help you reach your goals. Our primary objective under the grant that we received was really to increase your revenues and potentially your employees base of your company. This is a pilot program, so they're trying to get a sense of what works and what can be measured. And David Mayo and Mike Harris and we really settled on the idea of growth and trying to help you grow as as reasonably and as quickly as you can. So we will be reaching out to you on an individual basis to schedule these Zoom calls. I also mentioned earlier, and I'm not sure Brady was on there at that moment, but for customer interviews, we can provide you with the Zoom tool so you can use to reach out to your customers. You'll be designated a host, and you'll be able to use that tool for purposes of the questionnaires and things like that you want to do. We're able to do that, and we want to help with that.
We'll reach out by the end of this week in regards to scheduling one-on-one times with Dennis. And expect a lot of interaction too with myself and the other 2 interns, Marco and Cole. Marco and Cole will be assisting a lot, especially if you're along the lines of more tech or engineering. You'll be meeting a lot more with Marco and Cole. But yeah, at the end of the day, we just really want to learn about your businesses. We want to kind of see how you got to where you are, what problems you may be facing, and kind of where you're trying to take the business. That way we could pair you up with the mentors the best. And don't take the mentors lightly at all, especially our mentors with Accelerate Rural, because these mentors blow the other mentors I've had out of the water with other programs. Incredible people that Dennis has lined up to help you guys. And I'm still in connection with every single mentor that I've had from Accelerator programs. I mean, they've been the best tool for me. So we just want to make sure we pair you with the best mentor we can.
Yeah, I think also don't hesitate if you go through on the acceleraterural.org website, you'll see the list of mentors. If there is someone on there that you are interested in, you think for whatever reason could be helpful, I can connect you with them. I told the mentors that this is a two-way street. There may be a little bit of a reach out by the companies as well as me asking them specifically to work with people. So they're prepared to talk to you. Some of them may not be available for a bunch of reasons, but in general, most of them will be. So if you do see someone on there that you think can help you in your business, please don't hesitate to reach out to me and I'll connect you with them. Their orientation is to help you. Are there any questions at this point? Okay, one last thing before we go for today. I've talked about Webinopoly as a company that's a premier partner with Shopify. For those of you who use Shopify, you'll notice on the calendar the Friday and Monday next, not this coming Friday, but the next Friday and Monday, I've scheduled two-hour blocks, 11 to 1 o'clock, both those days, with the CEO of Webinopoly, who is Mo Farhat is his name. He's a real interesting guy. He signed up to be a mentor. He has 50 developers that work for him full time. He does Shopify as well as other platforms, including mobile. And he's prepared to really go in depth in that session as to what's working in the marketplace, what's emerging, what are some new tools or new ideas or new positionings. So I think we can learn a lot from him. He does business in both China and India, as well as in Europe. And I'm going to ask him to help those of you who are interested in getting involved in some of these markets with your websites, so with your e-commerce activities. He's going to help us figure out how to do that. And so anyway, I just want to highlight that. That's a little bit of a different thing, 11 to 1, not this Friday, but the following Friday and Monday for Mo Farhat is his name. And I think you'll find him very helpful. Okay, any other questions, observations? Please speak now.
Or any suggestions you guys may have too, such as, the Slack channel's unorganized or difficult to, navigate around. Any suggestions or literally any minor inconveniences you guys are having, please reach out to me. Because again, this is just the pilot stage of our program. We're trying to get it all working out. We thought we had it ready to go, but obviously there's been some issues. So any minor, even the smallest inconvenience you have, let me know, and I'm going to do the best I can to make it as easy and simple as possible for every single person.
Okay. All right, anybody? It's go ahead, White's Farm. Holly?
Oh, no, I was just going to say thank y'all so much. I appreciate all the info.
Okay, I hope it's helpful. And in your case with White's Farm, and we also have another farm that's been part of the program, Pam Marone, who you may have met yesterday as one of the mentors. She is an agricultural expert, and she may not have all the answers, but she's a good person for you to connect with. She has a deep background in agriculture, has worked in ag at a high level, and I think she can help.
Yeah, that'll be great. I look forward to it.
Okay. All right. Well, everybody, unless there's something else, Marco Agostini just popped in. Marco, why don't you say hello to everybody? Marco is our intern, who is an ECU student and is going to be helping us with technology. So let's see if he can say hello.
Hi, everyone. How's it going? Nice to meet you all.
All right. Thank you, Marco. Okay, well, I guess that's it. I'm going to say goodbye to everybody and see you tomorrow.
Thanks.
Okay, bye-bye.